It's Friday, August 16. In the headlines, a 5.3 magnitude earthquake shakes Jamaica on Friday. In business news, CIBC Jamaica announces improvement in its online services. Regionally, in Barbados, record-breaking tourist arrivals for the first half of 2024. And in sports, Tommy Gore and Senna Somerville set to burn the tracks at the ADAC GT4 Germany Championship this weekend. This is the weekend news on PBC Jamaica. I'm Simone Absalom Gill. Jamaicans felt a 5.3 magnitude earthquake on Friday morning. The earthquake unit confirmed that the quake happened at approximately 8:01 a.m., with its epicenter located approximately 6 kilometers northeast of Golden Spring in St. Andrew. It was reportedly felt in Kingston and St. Andrew, St. Catherine, St. James, Manchester, St. Mary, St. Thomas, among other parishes. Another one of the men suspected of being involved in last Sunday's mass killing in Cherry Tree Lane, Clarendon, was arrested on Thursday by the Maypen police. The suspect was arrested after he reported to the police station on condition of bail for a previous shooting offense in the Havana Heights community and was positively identified by officers at the station. He was subsequently arrested and is now in police custody. On Sunday, 8 persons, including a 7-year-old, were killed and 9 others injured when a group of men opened fire on a gathering at a birthday party in Cherry Tree Lane, Four Paths, Clarendon. The incident has shocked and horrified the nation. The suspect is the second person to be held by the police in connection with the killings after another individual was shot and killed Wednesday during a confrontation with the police. In the meantime, the security forces are continuing their appeal for information related to the incidents. Individuals are being urged to share related information through any of the anonymous reporting mechanisms that have been established, including Crime Stop at 311, the JDF tip line at 876-837-8888, or MOCA's anonymous tip line at 888-MOCA-TIP. Surveillance cameras are to be installed in correctional facilities. That's the word from Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of National Security, Dr. Horace Chang. He made the disclosure during an emergency press briefing at the office of the Prime Minister this week.
We have, in fact, put on the table, of course, the new corrections policy, which provides the framework for the development of new legislation. It's something that we expect to, it will not conclude in this parliament year, but in the next parliament year, we should be able to bring the new corrections out.
The build-out of the surveillance infrastructure in the prisons is expected to complement changes made to the Corrections Amendment Act in 2021. These amendments facilitated tighter control of prohibited articles being transported in and out of correctional facilities. The legislation also covers a number of additional offenses, including having access to and use or possession of an electronic communication device or a computer in a correctional institution, tampering with any electronic communication device or computer by an inmate, and an inmate transmitting or causing data to be transmitted using an electronic communication device or computer without authorization.
It's not without control. We, in fact, monitor the activities of these prisoners, not only by investigating and removing contraband from the prison, but the police monitors carefully. That's why some of the intelligence, without going into details, are able to identify beforehand, intercept, and sometimes save the lives of some of the very criminals who are involved.
Dr. Chang's explanation follows reports that persons overseas communicated with incarcerated gangsters to orchestrate last Sunday's gun attack in Cherry Tree Lane, Clarendon, which left 8 people dead and 9 people injured. Prime Minister Andrew Holness has expressed disappointment over the damage caused to sections of the roadway under the Southern Coastal Highway Improvement Project in St. Thomas, but notes that systems are in place to safeguard the infrastructural investment. The Prime Minister made the comments while touring sections of the highway on Wednesday. Motorists have long been complaining about the various physical issues relative to the highway. However, the passage of Hurricane Beryl has exacerbated the damages. Prime Minister Andrew Holness, while touring sections along the Southern Coastal Highway that are in need of repair, was accompanied by representatives of contractors China Harbour Engineering Company and the National Works Agency. He reminded the public that safeguards are in place.
The important thing is that we have the systems in place. That's the message I want to get to the public today. This is not the construction of infrastructure of the past. No. This is a new way of ensuring that the infrastructure and investment is protected.
While commending the quality control system in place that was able to pick up these failures and correct them, Mr. Holness further reasoned that from a climate change perspective, it was necessary to move the roads inland.
As much as we can change the alignments we have and what we can't, we would build on and reinforce. So I wish to assure the public that yes, we are disappointed that some of sections of the road would have failed. But the important thing to note is that the failures have occurred within the contract period. So the contract period has not ended. So this is even outside of the defect liability. This is in the contract period. So this road is still under contract. The contractor check has an obligation to deliver the road to a particular standard. Now, when the contract is finished and the road is handed over, you still have what is called the defects liability period of 2 years. So the public is totally protected.
The Ministry of Health and Wellness is advising Jamaicans to take precautions against Mpox, a potentially fatal disease that causes flu-like symptoms and skin lesions. Formerly known as monkeypox, Mpox has not yet been reported in Jamaica, but Chief Medical Doctor Dr. Jacqueline Bessessa McKenzie urges citizens to remain vigilant and protect themselves.
The Minister of Health and Wellness has noted the declaration of Mpox as a public health emergency of international concern by the World Health Organization and wishes to alert the country that while there are presently no cases of Mpox reported, members of the public should take the necessary precautions to safeguard themselves from this disease. Mpox is a rare disease that is similar to smallpox and can be transmitted by contact and droplet exposure. The outbreak in 2022 was larger among men who have sex with men and was controlled through vaccination and behavior modification. Safe sexual practices, along with practicing physical distancing, mask wearing, and frequent hand sanitization, will reduce the likelihood of transmission of the Mpox virus.
The advisory follows a declaration made on Wednesday by the World Health Organization, which classified the outbreak as a public health emergency of international concern.
Today, the emergency committee met and advised me that, in its view, the situation constitutes a public health emergency of international concern. I have accepted that advice. The detection and rapid spread of a new clade of Mpox in eastern DRC, its detection in neighboring countries that had not previously reported Mpox, and the potential for further spread within Africa and beyond is very worrying. In addition to other outbreaks of other clades of Mpox in other parts of Africa, it's clear that a coordinated international response is essential to stop these outbreaks and save lives. WHO is on the ground, working with the affected countries and others at risk through our country and regional offices, as well as with partners including the Africa CDC, NGOs, civil society, and more. For example, we're providing machines to analyze blood samples and confirm cases of Mpox. We're supporting laboratories to sequence viral samples. We're on the ground supporting case investigation and contact tracing, risk communication, and community engagement. We're training health workers and supporting clinicians to provide appropriate care. We're supporting countries to access vaccines and develop the strategies to roll them out, and much more. WHO is committed in the days and weeks ahead to coordinate the global response, working closely with each of the affected countries and leveraging our on-the-ground presence to prevent transmission, treat those infected, and save lives.
In the business report, Nigel Holness, Managing Director of CIBC Jamaica, announced that clients may open a bank account completely online. He's quoted saying, "Our upgraded platform has been a real game changer for our bank. Now, our new and existing clients can complete the account opening process from anywhere using a computer or mobile device. Plus, their documents can be verified online through a trusted source, and they can even sign the application form digitally, all without stepping foot into a branch. It is all about saving the customer time and eliminating trips to the bank." End quote. Earnings reports continue to roll out for the companies listed on the stock exchange. Medical Disposables and Supplies Limited reports first quarter profit attributable to shareholders of $2.16 million. Stanley Motor Limited, SML, reports 9% decrease in 6 months net profit. General Accident Insurance Company Limited reports 6 months net profit of $159.11 million. Dolphin Grove Limited reports 22% decline in 6 month net profit. Deramon Trading reports 44% decrease in 6 months net profit attributable to shareholders. Regency Petroleum Limited reports 78% increase in 6 month net profit. Productive Business Solutions Limited, PBS, reports 6 months net profit of US $2.46 million. Let's take a look at the latest movements in the local and regional stock exchanges. Denise Williams has that report.
During trading for the period of August 15, 2024, the following companies represent the top 3 most active stocks that investors bought and sold on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. Microfinance firm Dollar Financial Services Limited with 6,315,543 units represented 23.48% of the market trading volume. Gas station and oil distribution firm Regency Petroleum Company Limited with 4,334,371 units represented at 16.11% of the market value in trading. Beverage distributor Jamaican Teas Limited with 2,212,648 units represented 8.23% of the market trading volume. Moving from the money moves of investors, executives, and companies on the stock market, we turn to the Forex market. On August 15, 2024, the Bank of Jamaica reported that US $35.27 million was bought from Forex traders, while US $32.84 million was sold to Forex traders. Buying directly from the Bank of Jamaica, foreign currency traders sold the US dollar for $158.07 and bought the US dollar for $156.15. The difference between the buy and sell rate was $1.92, which represents a profit for Forex traders for every US dollar traded. Canadian Forex traders earned a trading profit of $4.59 from transactions with the Bank of Jamaica. The Canadian dollar was sold at $112.29 and bought for $116.88. For traders looking at the British pound, they pocketed a profit of $5.91, selling it for $202.77 and buying it for $196.86. For our credit report tip of the day, we continue with our theme of being over 50 and planning an early retirement with the goal of rebuilding your credit to leverage loans to invest in income-producing assets. So we have two more suggestions for you. Leverage your home equity. If you own a home, consider a home equity loan or a line of credit. These can offer favorable interest rates and provide capital for investing in income-producing assets. You can also invest in real estate or dividend stocks. Once your credit is in good shape, focus on income-producing assets like rental properties or dividend-paying stocks. These can generate steady cash flow and enhance your retirement income.
In regional news, in Barbados, record-breaking arrivals were reported for the first half of the year, as revealed by the Barbados Hotel and Tourism Association's quarterly press conference. Crystal Hoyt has the latest updates.
Well, Pearson, a record year for Barbados so far, as tourism arrivals for the period January to June 2024 are up by 15%. This substantial increase is attributed to the recently concluded crop-over season, as well as the hosting of the ICC T20 World Cup.
We have welcomed 381,997 stay-over arrivals for this period, compared to 323,948 arrivals for the same period in 2023.
The majority of Barbados' source market saw a significant increase, with the USA arrivals increasing by 31%, and both CARICOM and Canada arrivals surging by 16% this year compared to 2023. It is only the United Kingdom which contracted slightly by less than 1%. The BHTA chairman, Javon Griffith, says projections for the winter season are also promising.
The appetite for Barbados remains very strong, with early forward bookings from major source markets exceeding 2023 by 18%.
Now, Pearson, while all this good news was being delivered by the BHTA, planned layoff by Sandals Resort also came up. If you would recall, earlier this week, the BHTA chairman referred to more than 200 workers being laid off from Sandals Barbados as a seasonal norm for the industry. He said it's usually a period of low occupancy, and hoteliers often use the time for maintenance and renovations. That explanation has now been called into question, however, because of a letter dated August 7th sent to staff from Grand Cast Management Barbados Limited, trading as Sandals Barbados. The correspondence formally advised that the company will be undertaking a restructuring exercise as a result of the projected economic downturn in a number of source markets. It invited staff to a one-on-one consultation meeting with the general manager, a human resource representative, and a note taker to determine ways to avoid redundancy, raise concerns, and discuss other alternative employment. When I asked the BHTA if it was aware of the Sandals Barbados restructuring exercise, CEO Ryan Ford had this response.
So no, they haven't made it known to BHTA in terms of what is the total changes or outcome. For us, the initial information is based off of seasonal, but what we've been notified on is that it's not only targeted towards Barbados. However, we've not been given the full explanation in terms of what is going on in the entire Caribbean region. So until we have that information, we wouldn't want to put out information on the entire corporation of Sandals. We've only been told on the downturn of business and those changes, but we don't know anything further.
On Thursday in Belize, representatives from the Ministries of Sustainable Development, Climate Change, Blue Economy, Fisheries and Natural Resources convened for a brief session focused on regional cooperation and project implementation. The discussion centered on initiatives like the Mas America Reef Project. Focal points from various departments and ministries gathered to deepen their understanding of these projects and explore how Belize can maximize the benefits from these regional initiatives.
We have smaller projects which we implement right now. For example, in the region, we have the Selva-Maya Project 2, which is coming on stream, which is between or among Belize, Guatemala, and Mexico. It's a landscape project to look at the region. Belize, the entire country of Belize is considered Selva-Maya, so we're looking at that from that perspective. But it looks at landscape, also looks at livelihoods, and certainly some areas of conservation. We have on stream a project which Belize was not directly a part of, which is the Dry Corridor project, but we have been pushing as much as we can to be part of that regional project. For some reason or the other, $179 million under GCF, and Belize was not involved. But when I came into office, we found out about the project, and we have been pushing to get the project, but I also know that it is has been approved for us to be able to gain and get some benefits out of the project, even though we are not part of the project per se. We have projects that are funded through GCF, the JEF. One other project that will start will be the a JEF project that is handled regionally, which is the Ridge to Reef project, which we have done the first phase, which was for the Belize River. But now we are looking at the Rio Hondo as a second project to be able to do that Reef to Ridge project, where we can help to mitigate the problems that go from inland into the rivers, streams, and then eventually into the ocean.
Antigua and Barbuda's projected 6.3% growth this year is a rare bright spot in the region. That's according to Professor C. Justin Robinson. He highlighted the country's status as the second fastest growing economy in Latin America and the Caribbean, but cautioned the government to capitalize on this period, given potential external risks.
I think what is more important is that you're not always going to have high growth. We live in a vulnerable part of the world. We have vulnerable natural disasters. There are rising geopolitical tensions. When we have those periods of growth, like we've had for almost the last 7-8 years outside of COVID, when we have these strong periods of growth, especially the last 3 years, it's important that we build up buffers so that when the inevitable crises come, when these inevitable crises arise, that the government is able to respond and protect the most vulnerable around us. Because I think the factors that are leading to persons not feeling the growth, I don't see these as factors that are inside the control of the government. The inflation is largely imported, given the structure of our economies. I think what is important, we are having 3-4 years of quite robust growth. And I think it's important in that period to remain very disciplined on the expenditure side and to have a robust effort to collect the level of tax revenue that we should be collecting, so that in these good times with growth, that we are building up buffers to help us respond to the inevitable crises. You know, we are not yet out of the hurricane season. We don't know what's going to happen with the US election. There's just a lot of geopolitical tension that really pose a lot of downside risks to an already low growth forecast among our major trading partners. So I think it's time to be very disciplined and focused.
In sports, we begin on the tracks. Jamaican race car drivers Tommy Gore and Senna Sommerbell will continue their challenge of the ADAC GT4 Germany Championship in Germany this weekend in a new car and team. The two young circuit racing stars entered the championship this season driving an Audi R8 GT4 for their former team. However, according to both, things didn't work out as planned. In a statement, they said, quote, "We made our debut in Europe early this year with a lesser-known team, to put it shortly. The promises made for performance were not followed through by the team, leading us to almost withdraw from the championship. End quote. Still, their impact on the championship was enough to get them a second chance when they were approached by their current team, W&S Motorsport. And that's it for the news on PBCJ. You can follow us on our social media platforms at PBCJamaica. Have a great weekend.